Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for hopefully rejoining us after our Portuguese property masterclass today. We've had 6 insightful, interesting webinars on the buying process, on sourcing funds, on mortgages, on the estate agency role, on relocating permanently to Portugal, on managing a Portugal property for rental and maximizing rental income, currency transfer, the lot. So let me kick off by reminding all of you who the participants are today. I can also remind you to send us in any final questions that we might have missed from the earlier sessions. Just tap the Q&A button at the bottom and send in your questions for our panel. So this panel is made up of everyone from all the previous webinars. A quick round the houses of who you are and what you do, please. Nuno from Eureka Properties.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody again. My name's Nuno. We're a real estate based down in the south of Portugal. We're in the center in a little town called Carvoeiro. We do properties east to west of the Algarve. Moving over from the cell, we do real estate management and rentals.
Thank you, Nuno. And sticking with the estate agency world, Angela Worrell of Ideal Homes.
Hi, I'm Angela Worrell from Ideal Homes. I'm the director. We look after all the Algarve as well, and also over in Isla Canela, just over the border in Spain. And we have a full service, everything that you need from buying, starting your process right to the end and renting your property. We'll be there for you.
And Chris Garvey from Chesterton's, Portugal.
Good afternoon. I own the Chesterton's franchise for Portugal. We have 4 offices in the Algarve and 1 in Porto. We've been here going on 50 years now, and so we know the market well, where we operate, and love being down here.
And thank you, Chris. Christina, you're an independent mortgage broker, but you work a lot with Ideal Homes.
Yeah, I'm a mortgage broker for Ideal Homes.
Okay, and thank you, Paula Mireles. How are you?
Good afternoon to all. Paula Mireles. I am an independent lawyer based in the Algarve, but due to the fact that the Portuguese legislation is the whole for the country, I represent clients wherever they buy in Portugal, from the north to the south, islands. So wherever you buy, I can help you.
Okay, and moving on to a couple of the money and finance people. Tom Arnold from A Place in the Sun Currency.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tom Arnold from A Place in the Sun Currency. We help you to achieve much better exchange rates when it comes to moving your funds over to pay for your dream property in the sun.
And finally, Matthew Chrisman from Blevins Franks.
Thanks, Andy. Yes, I'm a partner of Blevins Franks based in Cascais, but as a company, we cover the whole of Portugal, up from the north, the Minho, right down to the Algarve. We advise UK nationals both in the UK before leaving and arriving, and giving ongoing service in tax, investments and pensions.
I don't know what the collective name is for a bunch of Portuguese property experts. Should we call you an estate? An estate of Portuguese property experts that we have on screen, and a number of questions already coming in. Another one from Bill O'Brien. I think this is possibly best for you, Paula. My understanding is that third country nationals can get 1-year renewable resident visa without meeting a golden visa requirement. Is this correct? Do you have any insight on that one, Paula?
Yes, I have a Canadian client which decided to become a non-habitual resident in Portugal. He's working from Portugal, and yes, he was just granted 2 weeks ago. Okay.
And the investment requirement for Portugal of 500,000 euros. This is a question anonymously. Can that be split over a couple of properties, Paula?
Yes.
It can. And would there be any difference if one of these was the Algarve and one was Madeira?
No, you can. The investment needs to be done in our country, so it doesn't matter where you do the investment. It can be perfectly in 2 different places.
Okay. And another question in about pets. Who's good on pets and pet transfer, vaccination certificates and pets, and also actually I misread that. It's not about pets, it's personal vaccination certificates. Is any requirement, Paula, on the vaccination, proof of vaccinations for becoming resident?
No, not for the moment. Yes, with COVID, people now are asking for some countries to prove that you have made your tests, but not yet requirements for vaccination itself.
Okay, I was conflating two questions there because there was a question about somebody relocating with their pedigree cats. I know I put you on the spot earlier in the summer, Paola, with a question about relocating with a parrot. Is it the cats and parrots fall into the same category?
No, it's easier. The process to bring cats is easier, but yes, they have to bring their certificates from the vet, proving that they are healthy and that they had all the vaccines in place.
Okay, Angela, Trevor Davis is interested in buying a 2-bedroom property in the Algarve and renting it out in the summer months. I know there's a number of variables with that in terms of rental yield, but can you give Trevor an idea of what sort of return he might get during the summer peak period?
Hard to say really, because obviously it depends where he buys and what he chooses to buy in what area. So it will always vary. Best thing to do is to get in his mind what he wants and what he wants from it, and we'll find the property and we'll give him all the figures on it. But you're always going to get a good yield. The holiday market over here is fantastic. I think it's one of the best in Europe for people wanting to holiday here, and so you're always going to get a good rental return if you take our advice on where that's going to be and where you're going to get the best. So it depends how much he wants to spend, how much he looks to return from that. So, but to get in touch and we'll be able to help with more detail on that.
And Chris, do you find a number of your clients are looking to commercialize their investment in say in a holiday home and rent it out and offset costs or even make money?
Most people nowadays do want to rent out to help cover some of the costs of running the property, and maybe even to help cover the cost if they have a mortgage on it. So the market is good for that. A lot of people do it themselves, but you still need someone on the ground to help resolve problems when they arise. So a local villa manager, I think, is a must if you're going to have that.
Okay. And Christina, somebody here, Marta Peel-Yates, is asking about mortgage application qualification criteria. We covered some of this earlier. They're retiring or retired. Can they use their pension to meet the mortgage requirements?
Yes, of course. As long as you've got the affordability.
So it's just an affordability test. Just remind us of the key qualification criteria that you ran through earlier this morning for getting a mortgage in Portugal, would you?
The way the banks work up the approval is based on your credit. So any loans that you've got, existing mortgages, personal loans, car loans, they take your loans, include the finance in Portugal, cannot exceed 35% of your income. That's how they work out the affordability.
Okay, and Nuno, generally, I know in Spain, if you're looking to buy a property, then depending on the region, there are 17 autonomous regions in Spain, and the taxes and the equivalent of stamp duty do vary from region to region. So you're looking at anything between sort of 9 to maybe 14% of the purchase price in fees and stamp duty and legal fees and notary, etc. What should one set aside generally if buying in Portugal?
Well, honestly, I always tell my clients worst case scenario. I always tell them to cater around the 7% mark. If they've based themselves on a 7% mark, if it's up to 300,000 euros, if they're a cash buyer and they're not dependent on a mortgage, they're probably looking around 5.5%. If there's a mortgage in place, they're looking at 6.5%, which is an extra 1% for stamp duty. If it's over 300,000, you're basically looking at 8%. This basically tends to include everything from fixtures and fittings, your legal fees, creating and setting up your water and light contracts. It used to be a lot more back in the day, but because of Portugal wanting people to invest in Portugal, they created what you call a funding, or basically an allowance. And basically to date, if you're looking at buying property, like I say, if you're going up to 300,000 euros, work on a 7%, you'll be left with change. If it's over 300,000, work on 8%, and that should cover everything.
And Tom, do you have customers then who use a place in the sun currency for regular payments, such as mortgages?
Yeah, absolutely. Mortgage payments, regular just upkeep costs and covering bills and things like that, we can help with all those kind of smaller payments as well, including any sort of ad hoc requirements to builders, gardeners, whatever it might be. Just as easy to do as the bigger payments, and obviously the impact on an individual transaction, the saving might be a little less, but over time it all adds up to more euros in the pocket.
And Paula, Sandra Hamrouni asks about this proof of residency, which we went through in some detail on our relocation session, but it is key. 4 months to go until the end of the year, well, just slightly less now, and people keen to know what they can and can't do. For proof of address, could you have still continue to have a UK bank account, or would you need to prove that you had a Portuguese bank account for those 3 months?
For those 3 months, you need a Portuguese bank account.
So the bank statements from a Portuguese bank.
Correct. Okay.
And Eric messaged earlier. He was asking you about your bacalhau that you had for lunch. He's now asking about how easy is it generally to get planning? I know we haven't got any planning specialists here, but somebody looking to do extension work on a property, is that an area that you get involved in, Paula? Or yeah, the hand's gone up. We'll come to you next, Chris.
Yes, I do, but I saw that Chris also raised his hand, and we also have Nuno with his projects now already started. So you have lots of people. I just want to ask something a little bit out of what we are speaking. I promise I show my picture. Am I allowed of the bacalhau?
Oh yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah.
That looks very good.
Can you see? Can you see?
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Thank you. Yeah, gentlemen, I promised I would show. Sorry to all.
I virtually enjoyed that. So let's take this in turn, Chris, then Nuno. So Chris, what's your comment on that, please?
It depends on what the PDM of the local town hall foresees. You know, for example, if you buy on a development, there will be outline approval already for a property. If it's out in the countryside, the regulations are different. You'll need to get clearance from the town hall in terms of also the ambient. What do you call that, Nuno?
Reserva ecológica.
Yeah, there's national reserves and that sort of thing.
Right.
So it depends very much where the property is and the type of thing you're trying to do. There are areas which are more sensitive, like national reserves, where it's quite difficult to do extensions. But normally, the town hall will tell you very quickly. It's an easy process to find out.
Yeah.
And Nuno, do you then are involved in some development from scratch?
Yeah, basically it depends what the client's buying. And I always say before actually moving ahead with that type of project, obviously get a renowned builder or get someone that's dealing with it as architects in place, or your legal advisor that will go to the town hall and make sure. Because if you're buying a piece of land where you're going to construct from scratch, you need to know if there's building permission. If there's building permission, you need to know what you can submit to build on there. The architects could design a project that doesn't fall within the requirements, as Chris said, within that plot of land. You may be buying into something that already has a building permission that already has been granted, and that's an easier process, and you can get started with the licença prévia, which will allow you to start building within 30 days. But it's all subject to, again, what you've purchased. If you're doing a refurbishment, normally, if it's an internal refurbishment, you don't have to ask for any approval. Basically, you're working inside. If you're doing an extension on a property, then you need to go to your local PDM and say, look, this is what we're looking at doing. We would like to extend within the perimeters of our land. Are we allowed to do it? Normally speaking, within 10 to 20% of an approval construction that was granted, whichever year of the building took place, they tend to foresee that. But like I always say, do not move ahead with anything like that until you've had someone that's specialized in the area and has done the requested research that's needed to make an informative decision for that.
Thank you, Nuno. We're jumping about quite a bit here, but this is the nature of this final wrap-up session. Matthew, I've got somebody just wanting you to summarize the key benefits of the NHR scheme again, if you would, for us. That was quite interesting earlier on, but somebody's missed that.
Sure. I mean, first of all, stipulation is that you can't have been Portuguese tax resident in the previous 5 years. But as long as you haven't, when you become tax resident, you can apply for NHR status and you get it for 10 years. And what that'll give you is, for those that arise out of Portugal, which is pensions are taxed at 10% in Portugal at a flat rate, previously 0, but now 10%. Dividends are not taxed, it's called exempt with progression. Royalties as well. And also if you work in Portugal on Portuguese source income, if you have what's deemed a high value added activity, which is an activity that Portugal deemed to be certainly to add to the economy, sort of doctors, dentists, architects, and other areas, then your income tax rate's a flat 20%, which is a lot lower than normal Portuguese income tax rate.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Angela, I've got a sense, I know your answer to this one. Colleen Anderson has been asking lots of questions about the Silver Coast. We haven't got agents on here from the Silver Coast, but let's not ignore her interest. Is a holiday home on the Algarve likely to rent more popularly than on the Silver Coast?
Most definitely, yes. It's what attracts people. So obviously, people going on holiday do want the sunshine, and they're more guaranteed it. You will get, like, the Silver Coast very good, like surfing and things like that. So you'll get a different kind of holiday maker there, but you won't get it as many weeks through the year as what you will in the Algarve.
Not quite the same year-round reliable climate then.
No. You would get good summer rentals, but out of the season it would be harder to rent your property.
Okay, and if you want to search for properties in the Silver Coast, then you can do so on aplaceinthesun.com. I think one occasion that we spoke in the summer, Paula, you were up in Óbidos with a client who was buying somewhere up that way.
I was that day I was completing on a client in Óbidos, but let me tell you, Andy, that this year I had lots of clients buying in the Silver Coast. I have clients buying in the Silver Coast. I have lots of people looking at the Silver Coast area because, as Angela said, here the weather is more reliable. But for somebody that comes from the UK, the Silver Coast will be always better than the weather that you currently have during the year. And to be honest, as I said then, and I cannot say nothing different, you will for sure you will get more for your money. So that's the reason most of the people are looking into the Silver Coast, especially those that wanted to relocate.
Okay. And a question anonymously here, maybe you again, Paula. Are some town halls quicker at processing residency applications than others?
Town halls, normally they will be the same. They will intend to be the quicker. I just named on the previous intervention that I know is Albufeira, that you go, walk in and walk out with your residency certificates. But all the rest of the town halls that I know, they will take 1 or 2 days before they grant the certificates.
Okay. And one anybody could pick up here, I think. Let's try you, Christina. Jan Kumar asking about Wi-Fi costs and efficiency along the Algarve. What can you tell us about that?
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Well, I pay 20 euros a month.
The connection works pretty well. We can see that.
You can see that, yeah.
Okay.
So quite good.
There's a lot of laser and fibre optic now along the coast, so it's expanding all the time. But yeah, the internet's quite good wherever you are. It's not expensive. I have just moved in further inland than I usually am. I used to be, and I do struggle a little bit with my internet for things like this. But it's getting further and further inland where they're doing laser and fibre optics. So I will soon be there.
Okay, and let's go from Wi-Fi back to the NHR scheme, Matthew. Somebody asking, what would UK buy-to-let income be taxed at under the NHR? Would that be 10%?
No, well, UK property income under NHR is exempt 10 years. However, please bear in mind, UK property rental income, the first taxing right is the UK. So even though Portugal do not tax it over the 10 years, the UK will.
So that would still be the case if you'd become tax resident and had relocated to Portugal?
Correct.
Okay. And can you open a bank account in Portugal while you're on holiday if still living in the UK, Chris?
Yes, that's no problem. You will need a Portuguese tax number to do that. So that's slightly more complicated. But once you have that tax number, you can go down to the bank and show them all your paperwork, and it's no problem at all.
And what's the process for getting that Portuguese tax number then?
You'll have to go up there with your passport, and they will accept at the moment an address in the UK. But I don't know about after Brexit, to be honest. I don't know whether Paula can answer that.
What we are doing for the third countries, we are being fiscal representatives of the client. So the process is going to be quite similar. In this moment, I've heard that there are some services, some tax services that are open. To be honest, I'm doing everything through internet because the surrounding areas of where I have the office, they are all closed. Portimão is closed. Lagoa is closed, Albufeira is closed, so there are several that are closed, so we do everything through internet.
And how long is a tax number valid for, Jill Joyce asks, Paula?
Forever.
You take it to the grave.
Unfortunately, it's true.
And Jacqueline Keenan, we did cover this earlier, Paula, but for Jacqueline's benefit, will your UK will cover your Portuguese assets?
Yes, if you want, you can establish that. But as I said, if you do not have the will in Portugal, the will in the UK will have to go past through probate. And only when all the process is completed, the probate has to be translated, stamped with the stamp of apostille, sent to Portugal, so the process can be started in Portugal.
Okay, so the general advice you give though is if you've got Portuguese assets and Portuguese property, then do a Portuguese will to reflect those assets.
That's what I recommend.
Okay. And Tom, what's the most common question that you get asked as a currency business? Kind of people phone you up, wonder what you do, how you make your money, why you're there. What's a common question to a currency broker?
Probably the most common question at the moment relates to Brexit and what the anticipated impact on the exchange rates will be over the coming months. And I think it's a fairly straightforward answer, albeit not necessarily a very palatable one, that if there's a no-deal Brexit, then the pound is likely to suffer greatly. And if there is a deal, then the pound will probably gain some strength back. We should get a clearer picture on that in mid-October when this new sort of deal deadline that Boris Johnson has set is reached. But really, going back to what we spoke about earlier, I think the options for forward contracts are very, very attractive at the moment because it does seem like the no deal rhetoric is very strong, and therefore you've got to think that the likelihood is that the pound might struggle a bit over the coming 2 or 3 months. So if you have purchases going through, then I would recommend that those forward contracts are a good way to go.
Okay, thank you. Christopher Olivers asked a question I missed earlier. I'm not quite clear on it, Christopher, but let's see what the guys pick up on. I've got a Euro bank account, just not in Portugal. I don't need a mortgage. Do I have to open a bank account in Portugal as well, Paula?
To become resident, yes. To buy the property, not really. You can buy a property without having a bank account. After buying the property, it's recommendable to have a bank account to pay the utilities.
It would just make life easier, wouldn't it?
Yes.
And another one, Matthew, Jonathan Williams, looking at asking about his UK military pension, which is an index-linked pension, and the taxation position on that, I guess, if he's to become resident.
In Portugal. Well, once again, Portugal will tax any overseas pension, as long as it's a recognised one, at 10% flat rate for any new applicants after the 1st of April 2020. Whether the UK will take any tax at source on that military pension, I am not sure off the top of my head how military pension is taxed. I'm sorry.
Okay. And there's one here that I think we can knock out the ballpark. I think I'll even answer this one. For proof of address for residency, can I just use my friend's address? I think that's a big no-no, isn't it?
That's for me?
Yeah, go for that, Paula.
Yes, lots of people are asking that. It's possible if the person does a comodatum contract. Some people will be willing to do it, some will not. So really, each case needs to be looked into, because if you give your friend's address, you have to have a title. If they do a rental agreement, they will be liable for taxes. So they will not want to do that. So the other option would be doing a comodatum agreement, which is, it's a contract that allows you to live in the house of the person for free, with the obligation of paying all the bills and current costs.
Okay, thank you, Paula. I'm putting the same question to you, Nuno, that I put to Tom. What's the most common question that you get asked? You're regularly exhibiting at our exhibitions in the UK. What's a common question from our audience when they interact with you?
Taking away the normal buying questions and all the legal, that a lot of people that look to relocate there, they ask me, what is the lifestyle like when you're not on holiday there? And it's pretty simple, and I speak for myself. It's basically being on holiday, but you commute back and forth to work. Because when you finish work and you get home, the lifestyle is cheap. It's a luxury lifestyle, but cheap and affordable. You find yourself, it's more outdoor living as opposed to the UK because of the weather. It's one of those things that if you're not on holiday, you don't go to the beach as often. But if you were living and you were retired, you wouldn't want anything better. It's peace and sunshine, quiet, it's affordable, and it's safe. And
Angela, you're from Leeds. I mean, what dragged you to the Algarve?
And what? Sorry, what was the question?
You're from Leeds, is that right?
No, Sheffield.
Sheffield. I'm sorry. What on earth dragged you to the Algarve? How long have you been there?
I've been here, it could be 15 years on New Year's Eve. Doesn't seem like it. It's gone really quick. I came over, some friends of mine decided to move over, and I didn't really know Portugal at all. And they said, well, actually just after they left and came to live here, my husband died, he passed away. And I had a choice to stay in the UK, doing the mundane, same job, same house, in the rain, or try something new. So I came over and rented a room from them I had a career break for 2 years, so my intention was to just see what it was like. And 3 months later, I met my husband and I stayed here, and I absolutely love the life here. It's so different, really laid back. It's just absolutely fabulous, very safe, and yeah.
No plans to come back anytime soon?
No.
And you've had a similar tenure, I think, Matthew. You've been in Portugal 16 years, is that right?
17.
17.
Yeah.
That's a nice, easy question. I've got a harder one for you now. If you have a DC pension pot in the UK, can you take out the 25% tax-free lump sum before getting NHR, then draw down the remainder under NHR at 10%?
Well, without looking at it and giving advice in detail, if you're still a UK tax resident, you can take a PCLS as a UK tax resident, yes. And then you can draw down the rest of it once you move to Portugal under an HR, under a preferential treatment, yes.
Okay, good. And I think you outstay everybody here on the Algarve. Chris, how long have you been there?
My parents moved here when I was 2, so 55 years ago.
You don't need to go into that.
I didn't have much choice in you put into that choice.
Okay, and what prompted their move then?
My mother was Portuguese, and they were actually going to buy an island in Fiji. And when that fell through, one of my uncles said, well, there's this place in the south called the Algarve. It's more like Africa than Portugal. Go and have a look. And they came down and they fell in love with it, and basically stayed ever since.
Okay. And what about property prices in the Algarve versus the Lisbon area? We've got another question in from Bill O'Brien. I know you don't directly have a lot to do with Lisbon. It's fair to say Lisbon's been a pretty hot market the last couple of years, hasn't it?
It's been very hot, especially for the Chinese golden visa. If you arrive at Lisbon Airport, all the sort of posters in the arrival halls are all in Chinese, all aimed at attracting the golden visa. So the market up there has been very hot for that. All the expo sites and everything else have gone very well because of that. So prices are substantially higher for the same type of unit.
Okay. And Nuno, from golden visas to installing swimming pools, somebody's asking about planning permission, or do you need planning permission? What are the necessary permissions for installing a swimming pool, and who has to get that? The company putting it in, or you as the property owner?
Normally the property owner will ask their legal services to take care of that. It's something that's easily done. Some people even sell their properties and they've never attributed to the tunnel that they had a pool, but it's a cosmetic license. It really gets approved pretty quick. The only difference is you'll find that you'll pay, your IMT taxes will be slightly more expensive on a yearly basis due to the fact you have a swimming pool. To obtain that, it's really easy. To build it, easy as well. Basically, you choose the shape, the size, and we do the rest.
Great answer. Thank you, Nuno. I'm just going to show everybody my screen here. So as you all know, you register for these webinars on this page. Right down at the bottom of the page is where we will be adding these recordings. So we've got our schedule currently published through to the 20th of September. We'll be putting the final week of September will be going up on Wednesday. And for all the recordings, we then put them on this page here. This was our Spain masterclass from last weekend. And if you give us a couple of days, we will get all our Portugal property masterclass up here. And I say that because there are a lot of questions coming in about subjects and issues that we covered in detail in the earlier webinars. So rather than retain all our exhibitors here, I'll just point you in the direction of those recordings. I'll also, of course, point you in the direction of our exhibitors. On the Meet the Exhibitors page under Portugal, we have all the companies that have taken part today. So we have a Place in the Sun Currency, we have Blevins Franks, Place in the Sun Currency, that's Tom. Blevins Franks is Matthew. Paulo Morales, Chris from Chesterton's Portugal, Angela and Christina on the mortgages from Ideal Homes, and Nuno from Euretha Properties. So it's been a bit of a marathon stint. Some of you I know have been with us all the way through, so we do appreciate your interest. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you to all our panelists. We appreciate you giving up your time on a Sunday. We know lots of you would have been at the NEC Birmingham normally, so we're all missing that at the moment, but let's hope we are all back there soon. Indeed. So to our audience and to our exhibitors, stay well, and goodbye from me, and goodbye from our panelists.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Andy. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.